Carter for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here. We appreciate your presence here today and the work that you're doing. Mr. Johnson, I'll start with you. In your testimony, you talked about the current system and how flawed it is for companies and organizations that are wanting to do the right thing and trying to do the right thing, and how easy it is for them to receive enforcement actions. How important is it for us to change the metric that's used to determine emissions from the annual emissions rate to an hourly rate?
Going to the hourly emissions rate would harmonize the rules between the NSR and the NSPS programs, so it would make some internal consistency, would give our members much more clarity about what the rules of the road are, and then they can make informed decisions about what they would do to improve the efficiency of their power plants or do other maintenance activities, because they would know what that clear line is between routine maintenance and what a major modification is. Giving them that clarity would speed their processes, cut our costs, while maintaining the environmental performance of the plant.
Have you communicated that to EPA? I mean, do they ever ask for your input, or?
We went through a process during the Bush II administration. Mr. Homestead was at EPA at the time, trying to clarify rules of the road on new source review. Ultimately, that was not successful. We've asked for legislative clarifications, as I testified for. We've been looking for some clarity in this program for 2 decades, and we think now's as good a time to act as any.
Wow. Have you have any examples where any plants where it just was no longer feasible and they just had to shut down as a result of the NSR being triggered?
I can't point to, at this moment, a particular plant that closed because of NSR per se, but where we have had plants that have closed or reduced their operations, it's been due to a multitude of factors, and there have been times when plants have considered making, say, turbine upgrade projects or other improvements that would improve the efficiency of the plant, that, as I said, they declined to do because of the uncertainty of the NSR process, its timeline, the litigation that would follow from that, and ultimately our members tend to operate in a small c conservative business manner to try to keep those costs down and avoid risks when possible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alturi, I want to ask you, Chairman Shimkus has mentioned in our February meeting that and when we were talking about the new source review, that there were over 700 guidance memos. How do you sift through all that? I mean, that's got to be unbelievable.
It truly is. EPA does a nice job out of Region 7 of trying to capture all of those applicability determination through an index. But there's also ongoing litigation that we have to be aware of because ultimately they decide. But again, in Kentucky, we are prohibited from regulating by policy and guidance. And it should be noted that the kind of the basis for what all NSR permitting actions are taken are through the 1990 puzzle book, and it is still in draft form. And so we just want EPA to give us the certainty that when we make a decision, that it's a final decision, and then the companies can make the adjustments and the changes without fear of ongoing litigation.
Let me ask you, from your perspective, if we were to shift to an hourly emissions rate, would that help? I mean,
well, again, the idea is that you're going to make that unit as efficient as possible, and I, to Mr. Buckhite's point is that it would be utilized more and increase emissions. But now with the 2010 standards for NOx and SOx, they're 1-hour standards, and that's what the health-based standards are. They're not annual-based standards any longer. So I think it makes sense to focus on the hourly emission rates.
Good, good. I would thank you all again for being here, and I hope you'll not be discouraged. I hope you'll continue work. I want to think it's a new day at EPA, and that they're more receptive and want more input from you. So thank you for what you're doing, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Chair